Good evening, San Diego. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis, and thank you for tuning in for your CBS 8 Plus weather update. Well, we started off the day with dreary conditions out there, and that's because the morning, well, brought in the rain. We had a fast-moving front, and ahead of that, that's when we had the bulk of that moisture, and that was, well, around the time that you were getting in the car and heading out, especially for that morning drive. So we had measurable rainfall that had the higher totals favoring North County. You had a little bit more than a half an inch of rainfall, and that was for Oceanside. Also more than a quarter of an inch for Carlsbad, as well as for Vista. And the more towards the south and east you went, you either saw nothing, and that's why you're not seeing any of those rain totals, or you also saw a lot less. So about 900ths of an inch for Santee, also talking about a 1/10 of an inch for La Mesa, a little bit more than that 1/10 of an inch, and that was for National City as well as for Chula Vista. The highest total in the entire county was actually San Onofre, and that was a little bit more than an inch of rainfall. So we are now hitting the pause button when it comes to wet weather, at least temporarily, because we are still looking at more active days in our forecast. But with the clouds also starting to clear out, that's going to lead to temperatures dropping down, especially across the inland valleys as you have widespread 40s for your overnight lows. 48 degrees for Vista, 48 degrees as well for Escondido. You're looking at the 30s and 40s across the mountains. You also have 39 degrees for Campo, 53 degrees expected for downtown, and 50 for Carlsbad. You get to your daytime highs for tomorrow, lots of 60s out there. That puts us in that near seasonal range for this time of the year. 68 degrees for Escondido, 69 degrees for El Cajon, 66 degrees for La Mesa as well as for downtown, and you also have the 50s across the mountains for your Thursday. Your surf forecast about 3 to 6 feet and a high risk of rip currents at our local beaches. We also have that UV index, which is looking to be low, but I think that's actually going to improve to moderate. And we did have those low conditions earlier today because of the cloud cover. And then by tomorrow, we start to see that transition a little bit more. So we have dry conditions for tomorrow, but then you have Friday. Friday is only a little hiccup. It's a weak disturbance that moves through. Now that weak disturbance is going to be coming in from the south. So I'll show you that coming up in our forecast model, but it does not have a lot of moisture associated with it. That's why you're not seeing high chances. It's a slight chance that we could see some additional showers. That would be Thursday night all the way through about Friday morning. And it looks to be more favorable for the mountains. That's upwards of about 1/10 of an inch of rainfall for the max. So we're not really looking at a big rainmaker for us. And as I mentioned, it's more favorable for the mountains, just adding to the rainfall that you recently got earlier today. Then we have that area of low pressure exit out. High pressure builds in. It's a weak ridge of high pressure, and so that brings in dry conditions and also talking about some temperatures warming up a little bit more for Valentine's Day. We're not looking at a washout for the weekend, but you notice that by Sunday night it starts to increase. That's because we have another area of low pressure, a stronger, a bigger one. That one's going to create a dip in the jet stream. That's going to send that moisture in our direction, increasing our chances. So once we get to about midnight on Sunday night, then into the start of next week, that's when we're looking at that most active period. And Monday looks to be the day that we have the more moderate to heavy rainfall. I'll explain why coming up. Here's the low that's going to be moving closer towards us. It does have that moisture across the Pacific, but as you can see, it gets closer towards us and a lot of that moisture starts to dry out. But that's why we're only looking at a slight chance, and that is going to be from Thursday night through Friday morning. Then we have this area of high pressure. It's a rather weak ridge of high pressure, but it is going to move in, and that is going to bring in the sunshine that we'll see at times. That's going to be Friday afternoon all the way into Saturday in the afternoon hours, and also helping to bump up our temperatures. But then you start to see a lot more cloud cover arriving by Saturday night, and that's going to hold strong into Sunday, and then we get to Monday. There's that area of low pressure I mentioned, the one that's bigger, it's more robust. It also is going to create a big dip in the jet stream. As a result, taps into an atmospheric river. You can see it trailing right about there, but it's also a weakening one, so you can see some of that moisture gets broken up. So it taps into that atmospheric river, sends it in our direction, but that's still opens the door for moderate to heavy rainfall. Flood threat increases west of the mountains, especially on Monday, as we are looking at that low getting a little bit closer, steering that moisture in our direction, especially when you're talking about an atmospheric river that allows for the heavier rainfall and also for a prolonged period. So we will continue to monitor because that's the highest chance that we have. Is right now it's about an 80% chance of seeing that moisture. And so that is very likely as we are looking at something that's going to impact the entire county with that measurable rainfall. Also talking about areas of low pressure moving through, that's going to be colder. So as a result, that brings down the snow level. Colder system translating to a snow level near about 4,500 feet to 5,500 feet. That's Monday and Tuesday. So a few inches of snow will be possible in our local mountains. As of tonight, models are suggesting that we could see potentially about 8 inches of snowfall, and that would be in Mount Laguna, and just seeing that across our mountain, so even potentially Palomar Mountain as well. So we're going to focus a little bit more in the days ahead on fine-tuning that, especially when it comes to forecast models. It's because we're too far out from the event happening. As we get to the couple of days ahead of it, that's when those models are in better agreement and have some more of that information. So we are looking at that area of low pressure that moves through, then another. That keeps our rain chances in the forecast all the way into the middle of the week. And then looking ahead to Thursday, looking at more of those chances with yet another area of low pressure that drops in. So a dip in the jet stream continues to send that energy in our direction, and we're still holding on to rain chances in the forecast for much of next week. When we look at your extended forecast, you have 60s for daytime highs holding strong all the way into next week, and that's going to be for the coast. You have low 60s next week because of those areas of low pressure supplying the cooler temperatures. You have 60s tomorrow for the inland valleys. You have 70s returning and more sunshine by Friday, and that's going to be with 70s for Friday afternoon and for Saturday afternoon. Those temperatures then come down. That area of low pressure I showed you, bringing in some colder air back into the upper 50s for daytime highs. That would be by Tuesday, and you're looking at weather impact alert days. That's because of the high chances when it does come to some wet weather in our forecast, and the more favorable day looks to be Monday. When we look at the mountains as well as for the desert, you have the 50s over the next couple of afternoons for the mountains, then you're back into the 40s for next week. Those overnight lows going into the 30s and 20s. That's going to allow for the chance for that snow to fall in our local mountains. So we'd be keeping a close eye on that as well. Then you have the desert. You have the 70s for daytime highs all the way through Sunday. You're back into the 60s by next week. This looks to be a large system, and also when you're talking about an atmospheric river, it's a lot of moisture associated with it. So that sends that moisture in our direction across the entire county. The desert did not see any measurable rainfall with this last round earlier this morning, but next week is a completely different story, and the entire county dealing with weather impact alert days for the first half of next week. We'll give you more details in the days ahead, but I hope you have a great night.